Ah, yes, the revived RX-78-02. So cheap, very well engineered, very accurate to the anime. What could be better than this kit? Well, hello, Origin! How's it going, guys? Plastic Disasta here. First off, don't throw your kits across the room. And second, it's April. You know what that means? Well, let me tell you. Back in April 1979, that is when the first Gundam series came out. And throughout this month, I'm going to look at a few RX-72 kits. First off, starting with high grade Gundam The Origin, the RX-78-02, not RX-78-02, Gundam. Now, technically it's not the original Gundam, but think of it as the alternate version of the original Gundam. Kind of like a Elseworld thing. Looking at the box art, it looks like the Gundam is popping a squat and he's whipping out the bazooka. It just fired off the shoulder cannons. We got some explosions going off in the background. Taking a look at this side of the box, we have the rear shot of the kit, and you can build two different ones. You can do either the early type or the middle type. And moving on over, we have a nice CG render of the Gundam going against Sharazaku and the pilot himself, Amuro Ray. And if you want to read this information, feel free to pause and do so. And moving further to the right, I think this is a short video on YouTube of the Gundam Rising. And if you want to read this information, feel free to pause and do so. Taking a look at this side of the box, we see the Gundam in cool action poses, showing off the weapons, the gimmicks, a close-up of the body unit between the early and the middle type, and it just shows off that it has marking stickers on it. Popping over the box, we got 4 bags of runners and a manual. Looking at the cover manual, we see a familiar box art. Moving on further down, we see more information of the difference between the early type and middle type, and of course more pictures as well. And right over here, we got the specs and information. Checking on the parts list, it looks like we're gonna have a few leftover parts. I'm gonna have to look at the runner closely to see what's up with that. Finally, moving on to the back of the manual, we see the Gundam in more action poses, showing off some more gimmicks, and moving on further down to tell you where to place some marking stickers and a color guide if you're planning on painting it. Starting off with runner A1, we have the traditional Gundam colors of red, blue, yellow, and white. Runners B1 and B2 is going to be the gray parts. C is going to be more of the gray joint parts. Now, I did a little bit of research on this runner, and I believe this is from another kit, which is a P Bandai kit called the Heavy Gundam. And correct me if I'm wrong, because this is a modified version of it. And to tell how it's modified, well, it looks like this part is missing right here in favor of this part. Runners D1 and D2 is going to be more of the white parts. Runners E and H are going to be parts for the weapons. Beam Saber Runner, Polycap Runner, and finally, color correcting and marking stickers. So that's going to wrap up the unboxing. I'm really looking forward to putting this kit together. I've heard great things about it. So I'm going to put this together right now. I'll see you guys right after. And there you have it. Here is what the kit looks like when it's all put together. And as for building experience, it's not as complex. So even for a beginner, you can easily put this kit together. And remember how I said there's 2 ways you can build it, either the early type or the middle type? Well, there is technically a third option. You can mix things up if you want to. More on that when I go through the accessories. Now, moving on to the engineering of this kit, it is really great. We're talking about like really good color separation, well, minus the yellow V on the crotch, and you get almost no seam lines, but the only seam lines you really want to get rid of if you are that worried will be the ones behind the legs. I mean, it could go for a pen line detail, but that is up to you if you want to get rid of it or not. For sticker placement, starting off with the eyes, of course, it does go onto the eyes. But here's the thing, the eyes are in yellow plastic, so what I did is that you take a black Gundam marker, just color it around the yellow spots, and then boom, you're good to go. This small red sticker goes onto the forehead, but it's a red piece of plastic, while the big red sticker right here goes onto the back of the head. This yellow V sticker goes onto the crotch right over here. These stickers right here, they go onto the elbow joints. these stickers right here go onto the knees, and finally these go onto the ankles right down here. And finally for the weapons, this yellow circle goes onto the bazooka right over here, and this one right here goes onto the early type beam rifle right here. That's going to be it for the out-of-box presentation, and it looks like this kit is really easy to detail up, which means I can safely say that if you want to put minimal amount of effort, this is perfect for you. And I'm going to work on this kit right now. I'll see you guys right after. And after all that work, here is what the Gundam looks like, and wow, it is amazing. We're going to have so much fun detailing this up. I mean, just look at the surface details. It could almost go for an RG kit, but this is a high grade. Just a heads up, when it comes with using marking stickers on dark plastic, you can see like the border around it. I mean, from a distance, it looks fine, but again, if you look really up close to it, it can throw it off a bit. Now, let's talk about the extra parts I mentioned earlier. So, what I have on my hand is the middle type, and right there on the Gundam would be the early type. The only difference is the surface detail. I just kind of like the asymmetrical look. Another thing will be the little missile pod right here. That is for the early type. This is for the middle type, so that goes in here. But ideally, this little blue piece does go right here, again, if you want to go for the middle type. I think it's supposed to be the collapsed version if you want to put in this little Vulcan pod on the chest right here. But all you have to do is just slide out the blue part, slide in the Vulcan pod, and slide the blue piece on top of the gray part. But I think it would be cool is that if I take out this little Vulcan pod with the blue piece, attach it here, and you got like two little like missile pods, or Vulcan pod, excuse me, on the chest. Moving on down to the wrist. Now this one is kind of a combination between the middle type and the early type. Now if you want to go middle type, you gotta take out these gray pieces on the wrist. Now as for early type, this one is fine. You guys replace this wrist piece, take out the gray piece, and replace it with one of these. Moving on to the backpack, of course, this is the early type. But if you want to make it to the middle type, you gotta take out the shoulder cannon and replace it with another beam saber. Moving on to the shoulders, that's the middle type version. You wanna know how? It's this little bar right here. Now if you want the early type, you gotta use one of these. And finally, let's move on to the accessories, starting off with the shield. Now, the early type, he holds it upside down. Now if you want to make it hold it right side up, you just gotta slide it up, pull it out, swap it to the other side. Now you can hold it right side up, and that would be the middle type. And the shield adapter, it does move up and down, it can rotate, and the handle can move in and out. And with this peg, you can have him use it by plugging it under the arm, or you can have him store it on the back or the waist. Actually, don't plug it on the waist because it will look kind of weird. Next up, we have the bazooka. Really nice color separated. The handle can move up and down, and this part can move up and down as well, and the scope can move side to side. Now to store the bazooka, you're going to need this adapter piece. Plug it onto the side of the bazooka and store it on the waist. Next up, we have the early types beam rifle, and I just love how beefy it looks. And you can actually pop this handle out, so it can be like a secondary handle, and you can also flip this out to reveal a peg to store it, of course, and the scope can move side to side. And finally, the middle type beam rifle, or in other words, the Gundam's usual beam rifle. The secondary handle can move side to side, the scope can move side to side as well, and if you can flip it out, boom, there's a peg, again, for weapon storage. And of course, I forgot to tell you that you do have more weapon storage options just by plugging these pegs onto these holes right there. Yes, and you have two beam saber effect parts for the beam saber handles. And finally, for the hand options, the ones you see in the Gundam are the beam saber holding hands. You have two open palm hands and two trigger finger hands. Now you might be asking, why two trigger finger hands? Because both of these beam rifles have these tabs on the handles, so you can have them dual wield if you want to. Moving on with articulation, the head is on a ball joint and there is a hinge joint right in there, so you have some really good neck movements. The shoulder is on a ball joint. It can swing forward this much. It can go up this high, and moving the arm can go this high as well. You have a bicep swivel, which is a little tight on my copy. Double bend on the elbow. ball joint on the wrist. You do get an ab crunch, but if you go too far, it will be awkward. And the waist is on a ball joint, so it does everything what a ball joint does. Front skirt can move up this far. Now on my copy, it is a little loose when you try to do the front skirt modification, so just be aware. Anyways, the side skirt can move out this far, and it does rotate a little bit. And as for the back skirt, it's fixed. These legs have a swinging mechanism, so it can go up this far, move back this far, and as for the splits, almost a full split, and you also get a thigh swivel, double bend on the knee, which gives us some really nice armor separation. The ankle armor is on a ball joint. As for the foot, it can go up this far, move back this far, and it is on a ball joint, so it does everything what a ball joint does. The pivot is fantastic, and as for the toe bend, it goes up this far. Onto the backpack, the thruster is on a ball joint, but it can only move up and down, and as for shoulder cant, there is a rotation right here, and a rotation right here. There's also this little gimmick behind the leg that if you flip this up, you get an extra thruster. Overall, the articulation on this kit is really great, though the ab crunch I showed you was really awkward, but hey, at least it's better than nothing. For size comparisons, this may shock you a bit. Here it is right next to the standard size RX-78-02. Now, believe it or not, the origin version is just a tad bit taller. Some of you may ask, which one do I like better? I'll answer that on my final thoughts. Next up, here he is right next to his arch nemesis, the Zaku 2. Don't these two look great together or what? And finally, here it is right next to Optimus Prime and Godzilla. So that's gonna be it for the size comparisons. Let's move on to my final thoughts. Moving on to my final thoughts, and you know what, I'll just say it. Amazing kit, just get it. Now, to answer the question earlier, do I like the origin version more or the revive version more? Well, to be honest, I like the origin version more. That's because, I mean, better articulation, better engineering, weapon layout, and you know what? It's actually worth every penny. Don't get me wrong, I do like the revive version because it's very cheap and is more anime accurate. The origin version, however, oh, that's a different story. So again, if you have a few extra bucks to spare, go for the origin version. And if not, you can get the revive version. That about wraps up the review. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys are new here, want to see more content, subscribe. Don't forget to leave a like and comment down below, share the video if you like, and I'll see you guys in the next video.